Part 2 of Local 6 Legal Line now underway, taking your personal injury questions right down here at 1-888-208-6946 with the honorable attorneys from Bryant Law Center, Paducah, Mayfield, and Louisville. And question right off the bat that says, someone says, can I put off paying my medical bills until my injury case settles? What do you think about that one, Austin?
Well, I mean, I guess you could, but again, in Kentucky at least, you're assumed to already have $10,000 of PIP coverage. So if you don't use that PIP coverage, you're going to just hurt yourself financially in the long run. So when you're negotiating, or your attorney's negotiating with the bodily injury liability carrier, the at-fault driver's insurance, they're going to take into account the $10,000 in PIP. So if you don't use that, you're just going to be out another $10,000 potentially, what your total settlement could have been. At the same time, if you go beyond that and you don't want to put on your health insurance because you don't have health insurance, then they could send you to collections. They may give you a little bit of time, like 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, but it just depends. So they can send you to collections on that, and all of a sudden you're in a much more financial hardship than you originally were if you would have had the bills put on your health insurance or paid by PIP or both.
Question from an anonymous viewer says they recently got into an automobile wreck. Damage was over $1,000 and insurance only gave them $1,000, and doesn't give any more details than that as far as who was at fault, whose insurance it was, but what should they do? Any advice from this information, Mark?
Well, Austin and I were just talking about it because Austin recently had something similar to this. So why don't you tell them about it?
Sure. I'm assuming you're talking about property damage. If the property damage, if you had an estimate done by any kind of collision coverage or a mechanic in town, and they give an estimate on the damage to that vehicle, then I would try to get as close to that number as you possibly can. Now, at the same time, the insurance carrier, whether it's yours or the at-fault driver's insurance carrier, they could get their own estimate, and then you've got two different numbers there. And what you're trying to do is find a happy medium. And with property damage, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but it's better to get it done sooner rather than later. The longer that lingers on, the worse it gets for you. Okay, you don't want to have a rental car beyond 30 days. You just don't want to be negotiating with the insurance coverage when you're talking about maybe a few $100 here and there. I would get your own estimate at a mechanic or collision coverage that you trust, and I would use that number, and I would try to get as close to that number as you possibly can.
I'll tell you, there's one other thing I've got to say about that. Everybody in Kentucky has personal injury protection unless you signed off on it that you didn't want it. So basically everybody's got it. You need more. The insurance adjuster or the agents won't tell you, or they don't tell you that you can get more than $10,000, but you should apply for it. It doesn't cost that much more money, and then if you should have the misfortune of having a wreck, at least you've got personal injury protection in excess of $10,000, so you can start getting lost wages, you can start paying medical bills, because it is really easy to spend $10,000 in medical bills. In fact, we're seeing more and more hundreds of thousands of expenses in medical cases, car wreck cases.
Got about 30 seconds left here, and we have a question. If we can roll that up in the prompter for me there. It says, what should they do? What should a person do that had cancer surgery and the doctor said he couldn't find anything, but they did the surgery anyway? Does he have a case he can go off of?
Well, that's troubling because everybody seems to think that if you go to a doctor and it doesn't come out perfectly, that you've got a malpractice case. The facts of that case make it sound to me like they had to do an exploratory surgery to find out if you had cancer, and when they got in there they found out you didn't have cancer, and so that's why you went in there in the first place. So anyhow, I wish I had better news for you, but I don't.
Mark Bryant, Austin Kennedy, a couple of the attorneys from the Bryant Law Center, Paducah, Mayfield, and Louisville, our guests today on this edition of Local 6 Legal Line.